What's up, everybody? What's going on? Today, we are talking about the big football news of the day. TJ Watt has reached an agreement with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's staying put 3 years, $123 million, $108 million guaranteed. This is almost a quarterback deal in a way. I mean, he's the highest paid non-quarterback now in the NFL. Well deserved. Obviously, he's probably one of, if not the best defensive ends in the league. Obviously, you got him and Myles Garrett, who got an extension earlier this year as well. And the Steelers shore up what I think has been one of the strongest off seasons. I really, we'll dive more into Pittsburgh and what they've done this offseason here as we break down the AFC North and kind of look ahead to see what could come out of this division. But ultimately, I think the Steelers, did what they had to do in getting him and getting that deal done. He's still relatively in the prime of his career. He's had some injuries here and there, but a lot of times he's played through those injuries, and he's just been a monster. He's just, anytime he's in the game, he has a chance to wreck that game and really, just change the game and get the ball back to the offense, especially the past few years where their offense has been terrible. So at least now that they, seem like maybe their offense is getting better, then maybe they can actually use his skill on defense to help them actually win more games. So we'll talk more about Pittsburgh as we go on, but let's start with the AFC, with the whole division as the AFC North. That's the division we're going to key on today, and we're going to talk about them and what I think will happen this upcoming football season. Before we look ahead, we got to look back. So last year, Baltimore obviously took care of business and won that division. They were 12-5. Pittsburgh wasn't far behind. They were 10-7 last year for a team that, again, the Steelers just always do it. Mike Tomlin always does this. He always has a winning record, always ends up finding a way to get his team in the playoffs. He's so stubborn in that way, because even when it's probably best for them to not make the playoffs and get a better draft pick, they still get in and they still make it happen. So ultimately, Baltimore was the best team clearly last year in that division. Pittsburgh was coming on strong, but they had so much drama between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. Couldn't figure out who to start. And that offense was just trash. That offense was ass, and it was terrible. And obviously they had to do something about that. Cincinnati started off bad. Remember, Cincinnati, I think, was at a 2-5 record. Let's see here. They were at a 1-4 record is how they started. Then they won 2 in a row before they lost another game. So they were always kind of chasing 500 until they kind of caught fire there at the end, winning 5 in a row to try to sneak into the playoffs, but they didn't. And then the last team in the division, which, spoiler, I think is going to be the last team in the division again this year, is the Cleveland Browns. They were 3-14 last year. Just things were not good for them. Quarterback was a mess. And so ultimately they are just, shooting darts at a dartboard, trying to essentially hit one and get one right. And we'll see, if this year, it's only up from here, I guess. So I expect them to be better, but when I mean by better, that doesn't mean good. So, all right, let's start with those 4 teams. Then I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. So Baltimore, their big offseason news is they re-signed Derrick Henry, 2-year deal, $30 million. So that's good, to get him locked in and back. He's best running back in the NFL is either him or Saquon Barkley. So that was big. A signing that kind of happened there towards the end of the free agent period, and it's because he had to leave Green Bay first. But Jair Alexander comes in from Green Bay. The problem with him is he's always injured, but if he can stay healthy, that's going to shore up that defense for Baltimore. They bring in DeAndre Hopkins as a receiver to help out. Zay Flowers is a stud. So offensively, they were fine. I think they're a good football team. Ronnie Staley, they re-signed, so they get him back. The only big news that sucks for them is Michael Pierce, the defensive lineman, their nose tackle, he retired. So that'll be a hole there that's missing. But ultimately, I expect Baltimore to pretty much be pretty similar to what they were last year. Lamar Jackson's incredible. And I think as long as he's playing, you have a very good chance of winning. So I really like what they did. And I think that for them, it was just, let's keep trying. Let's keep hoping that these guys with experience get better. Same coach, same system. So things aren't changing much. And I don't think they should have. They won the division. They were 12-5. And, even in the playoff game, they played tight. And, sometimes that's how it is. It's hard to win a Super Bowl. It's hard to represent the AFC or NFC in the Super Bowl. So I'm glad that they didn't just make major changes. Obviously, I would have, like anybody, wanted the team to bring in better players, I guess, but there's cap complications and things like that. So they did what they could, but they re-signed Derrick Henry, and obviously not re-signing him would have been a story. So they got done what they needed to get done. Pittsburgh finished second in the division last year. They, like I said in the beginning, I think they've had one of the most underrated off seasons. Let's start with the biggest drama. Obviously, they bring in Aaron Rodgers. Again, I've talked about this a little bit before, and I won't go into it too much now. I think he's solid. I think he's definitely better than Russell Wilson, and he's definitely better than Justin Fields. So on that point right there, essentially the headline should read, they bring in a better quarterback. That's what matters. So Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than what they've had, and they were 10-7 last year. So even if you give them one more win, 11-6, great. The other biggest thing that I feel like is an addition by subtraction is they traded George Pickens. The guy can play, but the guy can also whine and be dramatic and be a cancer in the locker room. So getting rid of him, trading him to Dallas, which I don't know why Dallas brings him in, because they're going to struggle. And when we talk about the NFC East, we'll get into that. But getting rid of George Pickens is huge, because now you don't have that cancer in the locker room. Now you don't have that distraction. Now that locker room can be full of mature guys who are trying to win a Super Bowl and trying to actually, focus on winning. And that's what matters, not the individual stats and all these crazy, things. He's over there fighting in the end zone with a cornerback. Like, he was doing all these kind of things that is just a distraction, and it's hurting the team. And ultimately, I'm just going to call it like it is. I think he's a selfish player. So by getting rid of him, I think that was huge. And then they obviously, they did this before they got rid of him, which was another reason why they needed to get rid of him. But they brought in DK Metcalf, traded for DK Metcalf, gave him a big contract. That's your new wide receiver one. And DK Metcalf is not George Pickens. DK Metcalf isn't going to be a cancer in the locker room. And DK Metcalf is still a very good wide receiver. He's a big target. And I think that is exactly what Pittsburgh needed. So that transition right there to me is huge. And then obviously the news of the day with re-signing TJ Watt. That's great. But they also brought in Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith by trading for them from Miami. Ramsey, he's older, again, veteran. Again, I think those kind of guys are perfect for Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers-led offense, TJ Watt on defense. Like, this is a veteran team. They're going to be, there to win games. Jalen Ramsey's won a Super Bowl with the Rams. He knows what it takes. So I expect these guys to be mature. And the last little thing that stuck out to me, another signing they had, is they brought in Darius Slay from Philadelphia, from the Super Bowl champion Eagles, another winner, another Super Bowl champion, another guy that knows what it takes. So love what the Steelers did this offseason. Cincinnati, on the other hand, I know I'm in the minority when I say this, but I think giving all that money to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is not a way to reach a Super Bowl. There's this thing called the salary cap. And when you have practically 60%, give or take, of your salary on 3 players and 3 offensive players, what's left? You better be drafting incredibly. And even the guys that they're drafting, the guy they drafted this year, a defensive lineman, they're having contract disputes, and that kid might hold out. And they haven't even re-signed Trey Hendrickson, which is their best defensive player. And again, I know it's unpopular because people want to see touchdowns. I would have signed Trey Hendrickson before I would have re-signed T. Higgins. I'm sorry. I think T. Higgins is wonderful. He's a great player. But that's a lot of money on your wide receivers. And only one of those guys is getting the ball per play. Again, I understand. I'm not saying don't pay T. Higgins. I'm saying the Bengals shouldn't pay T. Higgins if they're going to pay Jamar Chase what he deserves, which he's arguably one of the best receivers in the league. I think it's Justin Jefferson, but say Jamar Chase, best receiver in the league, you pay him for sure. But now, you got to pay T. Higgins as well. Good luck. Good luck getting Trey Hendrickson back in. And even if you do, they lost some defensive players. Von Bell is still a free agent. They probably can't. Maybe now if he's been sitting there for a while, but if he's sitting there for a while, chances are he's not, that great anymore in his career. Mike Hilton, the cornerback, is gone. They've lost several guys. Sam Hubbard, defensive player, retired on them. Trent Brown, an offensive lineman, gone through free agency. Defensive tackle BJ Hill, they re-signed, so at least they kept that. But ultimately, this team is, I just think they're going to be offense, and their defense is going to be atrocious. Let me just read to you last year when they started off 1-4, like we talked about, right? These were the scores. 16-10, week 1. 26-25. 38-33. 34-24. That was the win. 41-38. So of the 4 losses, the offense scored 25 points in one of them, 33 points in another one, and 38 points in another one. Those were 3 losses. I'll give you the 25-point outing. Maybe you could say the offense didn't do enough. All right. How about 38 and 33 points? Shouldn't that be enough? How about 34 points in week 10 to Baltimore? Shouldn't that be enough to win a game? No, they lost 35-34. How about 38 points? Is that enough to win a game? No, they lost to Pittsburgh 44-38. So again, the offense was never the issue. It was the defense. And they reinvested in the offense, which was great, but you're not plugging in the right holes. I think Cincinnati is not going to be great. I think that defense is going to give up like 80 points a game. And last but least is the Cleveland Browns. Like I said, they're kind of just taking a shot at anything at this point, which is almost what they should do. I don't really blame them, but the Deshaun Watson deal really kind of ruined the next several seasons for them. So I feel like now with their draft picks, they're just kind of taking their chances. They drafted 2 quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. Shedeur Sanders already got a speeding ticket. And again, if it's not nepotism, name me another fifth round pick that could get a speeding ticket a couple weeks after getting drafted like that, get arrested essentially, and still keep his job. I mean, Shedeur, we've heard it all year long, needs to mature. People were going crazy in the draft. Why is he not getting picked higher? Maybe this is why. Maybe we should have heard the experts and listened to the people. And by experts, I mean the actual people inside of the team and inside of the scouting and inside of those front offices who didn't select him, because they probably knew why they weren't going to select him. He dropped to the 5th round for a reason, and he showed why in the first few weeks after getting drafted when he's going 120 miles and like a 50-mile-per-hour road. So they bring in Shedeur Sanders. They drafted Dylan Gabriel a few picks before that. That's them essentially saying, yep, we're just going to pick quarterbacks and hope that one of them ends up being a stud. And honestly, with how the draft is, that is what you should do. I mean, take your chances, accumulate as many draft picks as you can, and take your chances. They bring in Tevin Jenkins, an offensive guard from the Bears. Fine. They drafted Mason Graham, which I like, so defensive tackle, and him, actually, they drafted pretty high up there, so I do feel like he's going to be a pretty good player. They took 2 running backs. So, again, same thing as the quarterback. They took Dylan Sampson and Quinshawn Judkins from Ohio State. Again, solid. They bring in Devin Bush, a linebacker, but none of these pieces are moving the needle. And none of them are moving the needle in week 1, because even if one of these, let's say Shedeur Sanders is an absolute stud, like Jaden Daniels type, Jaden Daniels had better players around him. So, but at least this year, I think for the Browns, it's, all right, let's develop some of these young guys. Let's see if we have our running back of the future with one of these 2 kids. Let's see if we can get our QB1, whether it's Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. And let's just see what happens. And next year, maybe if we have a high pick again, but we found our quarterback, now we can start building for this team with that quarterback. And once that, they free up a little bit, some salary cap space, then maybe can start bringing in free agents. So I think it's what they should be doing, but ultimately it's not going to result in winning this year. So my final predictions, I have the Cleveland Browns finishing last again. I'll give them an extra win. I think maybe they go 4-13. 4-13, 5-12, somewhere around there. Cincinnati, they were 9-8 last year. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they get worse. I'll give them the same record, 9-8 or 8-9. I just don't see it. I don't see it with a defense. They also let go of their defensive coordinator. Like, that's not his fault that you guys have no personnel on defense, because all your money is to 2 wide receivers and your quarterback. Like, you can't do that. You can do that if maybe you're the Vikings and your quarterback's on the cheap rookie deal. Maybe you guys can pay Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson while J.J. McCarthy's on a rookie deal. But you can't do that when your quarterback's making QB1 money. So I think they're going to be like 8-9 or 9-8. And then, surprise, surprise, I think Baltimore will be around the same. They were 12-5 last year, but I think they might go 11-6 this year. Maybe somewhere like that. I think, as you know, Derrick Henry's a year older. He had a pretty magical year last year, which would be hard to duplicate. And the offseason, I don't feel like they really moved the needle in either direction. So, and I think maybe based on the division, it's a tough division. Maybe they lose a game extra this year. But the winner of the AFC North that I have is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe in this veteran team. And barring any kind of injury, Aaron Rodgers is going to be a whole offseason removed more from that Achilles injury. Remember, it usually takes guys more than like a year to get back from this injury. And you saw it last year. When he was with the Jets, he started off and he didn't look great. Towards the end of the season, started to find his footing, played a little bit better. He's in his last year. I think the drama that has been put on him is a little bit unnecessary sometimes, and I think that people make him out to be this villain. But the people that it matters from, his teammates, have all raved about him. There's very few teammates who have said Aaron Rodgers sucks. Most of them think he's a great teammate. And I think when you're around veterans that are professional, like a TJ Watt, like a Jalen Ramsey, like a Darius Slay, and want to win a Super Bowl, they just care about what you produce on the field. I think with DK Metcalf there, I like what the Steelers are doing. I think they're going to be 12-5 or 13-4. I could see them having a great year. Maybe it doesn't start out great in week 1 and 2 because they are, relatively new with each other. But if they're healthy, let them get hot, and I think they could make some noise. So we'll see how this season plays out. I got Pittsburgh finishing first, Baltimore second, Cincinnati third, and Cleveland last in the AFC North.